Good day, my dear students, and welcome to the last class of the 2013 to 2014 school year of Timeline University. I certainly hope you've enjoyed the classes that have been taught so far. Wisps, Extreme Gear, the Space Colony Arc, How to Draw Shadow, Chaos Energy, Power Rings, and raising a Sonic Child. Well, we plan to go out with a bang, or perhaps more precisely, a Chaos
Blast!
Yes, our subject today is Shadow the Hedgehog, Android or Original. Now, it may seem apparent to some that Shadow is the original, right? Well, some think or have been told otherwise.
Trying to rescue Earth by the Bio Lizard and Space Colony Arc and about to crash into the Earth. You sacrificed yourself. You died. Then Eggman made a clone of you.
Dear Shadow, aren't you really just a clone of the original Shadow? 'Cause in Sonic Heroes it shows you were just a clone.
No!
I could go into a whole rant with that, so...
And even if you do think Shadow is the original, what happened to him when he supposedly died in Sonic Adventure 2? And I'd even pose the question, is Shadow really just a depressed, good-for-nothing some people say he is? We should be examining not only whether he's real or fake, but also his character. To do that, we're going to go through the life of Shadow the Hedgehog and discover who he is. Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game, allegedly already did this, but apparently some people are still confused. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Some of you might not even know who Shadow is, and if you do, you might not be a fan and therefore don't really know that much about him. Well, let's see Shadow the Hedgehog at a glance. Okay, black and red. Kind of has a mean look, don't you think? Oh, and jewelry? Goth? Maybe emo? By the way, he rides a motorcycle. Wields guns, uses bad language in his spin-off.
Where's that fourth Chaos Emerald?
And hates Sonic. He even looks like Sonic. Recolor? Not exactly a people person either. Does he ever smile? Hey, there's one! Oh, but it's Sonic X, so it's not canon. And it's an evil smile anyway, he was about to blow up the planet. He did save it, that's good. But wait, he has amnesia? Oh, so now he's turning to the dark side, lovely. And when will he stop saying Maria?
Maria, 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 Maria.
So, recolored, potty-mouth, goth, gun nut, gangster in need of antidepressants. That's what I'm getting. Before the Shadow fans get mad at me, I am a Shadow fan. This is just an illustration of what I think most people perceive when they see Shadow the Hedgehog. These aren't my opinions. So that's Shadow at a glance. But let's break it down and really figure out who he is, what happened to him, and whether he's the same Shadow. Faithful Sonic fans will note that Shadow first appeared in Sonic Adventure 2 back in 2001. This game focuses on the dichotomy between the good characters and the dark characters. For the dark side, the creators wanted a character that would assist the evil Dr. Eggman. At the beginning of Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow the Hedgehog, also known as Project Shadow, was released from a pod in the bowels of the G1 facility on Prison Island, which is just off the continent. Dr. Eggman was the one that released him. Why? The evil doctor found out about an invention of mass destruction made by his grandfather Gerald many years ago. Naturally, he wanted in on it. What he got was an immortal being, the ultimate life form. He got Project Shadow. We discussed all about how Gerald was brought to the Ark and why he created Shadow in the Space Colony Art class. So if you need further clarification, I suggest that you watch that lecture. So what happens?
I will grant you one wish.
Shadow promises to help Eggman in his conquest, whether it be for destruction or for rulership. The Hedgehog brought him to the space colony and introduced him to the most powerful weapon imaginable. A weapon that runs on the greatest sources of energy known to man and can pierce stars.
The Eclipse Cannon.
Dr. Eggman came up with a new plan. Threaten the rulers of the Earth with his grandfather's invention, gain control of the planet. But let's take a moment to examine these events. Shadow woke up from stasis, or more precisely, suspended animation. The dictionary definition of suspended animation is a temporary ceasing of most vital functions without death, like hibernation. This means minimal brain activity and extremely slow heartbeat and breath. You could only detect these vital signs by using a machine. Everything slows down, even aging. Of course, Shadow doesn't age, but if you put Sonic, for instance, in suspended animation, he'd have no noticeable growth, and he would look pretty much the same when he came out as when he went in. In any case, suspended animation is like a coma or sleep, but with no dreaming. Well, what happens when you sleep and don't dream? You go to sleep, then suddenly you're awake and it's morning. Do you remember anything in between, or how long you slept? Likely you don't even know what time it is. It could be noon, it could be 5 in the morning. Those 50 years were like a microsecond to Shadow. He had no idea what year it was, probably was slightly confused, and yet immediately saw Eggman, figured he woke him up for something evil, and ran with it. Hey, you seem like a nice guy. Want to come up to my Ark, take a spin on my Eclipse Cannon? I'm not making a euphemism. We know that Maria was Shadow's best and possibly only friend, since she's the only child revealed to be on the Ark besides the young Commander Tower. But we know that he was frightened of Shadow, and probably stayed far away from it. We know that Maria was shot down and killed just before she sent Shadow to the Earth. That must have felt like moments ago to Shadow. Think about it. Most people complain, he has had 50 years to get over her. He hasn't. Let's say that perhaps it took 2 hours to locate Shadow's pod on the ground. 1 hour to get him to Prison Island. 1 hour to prepare the stasis tube. And maybe an hour to get doctors to hook Shadow up to an IV to put him to sleep and for nutrients, if they even had to. Assuming that he was even awake for all of that, when Shadow woke up from suspended animation, it must have felt like Maria died only 5 hours ago. Tragic, yes, but what I'm really trying to focus on is, why would he make the immediate decision to help Dr. Eggman? If you've had a loved one die, you were probably debilitated for weeks. Is it just Shadow's personality? Was he that bitter for revenge? Part of the answer lies in what Gerald Robotnik did somewhere in between the raid on the colony and his execution. He altered Shadow's memory. Gerald implanted there a drive for destruction and vengeance of Maria, who was his granddaughter. That in turn is why Shadow wasn't wasting any time. He knew, or at least thought he knew, what he had to do. Shadow's only goal was to kill all humans on Earth. In harmony with this, Gerald wired the Ark to hurl itself down to the planet, causing total extinction of all life. However, as we know, Eggman didn't want to destroy the Earth per se. He wanted to rule it. Shadow knew that Gerald's programming would be activated when the 7 Chaos Emeralds were locked into the Eclipse Cannon. That's why he offered the cannon to Eggman. He was tricking him. Eventually, with Rouge the Bat at his aid, Shadow gathered together all the emeralds, Sonic and his friends constantly on their tail. Screens throughout the space colony and Station Square were instantly replaying over and over the last words of Gerald Robotnik. The Eclipse Cannon was now powered up with the Chaos Emeralds, which were then transferred to the core. The thrusters blazed as the Ark entered the atmosphere. The timer began counting down to Earth's total annihilation. Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Rouge, and Eggman worked together to get to the core and try to stop the Ark from falling. Shadow the Hedgehog looked out a window, seemingly with peace of mind. Amy Rose had been left behind, but she decided to take the initiative and reason with Shadow. I know that people fight over the most trivial things.
Some people may be selfish, like the professor said. But they're basically good if they try their best and never give up on their wishes. They always have a reason to be happy. That's why you should help them out. Saving them is a good thing. Shadow, I beg you, please do it for them. Give them a chance.
Shadow, I beg of you, please.
We see as Amy said those words, Shadow's true memories became unlocked.
On that planet, give them a chance to be happy. Let them live for their dreams. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's the reason why you were brought into this world.
Earlier on, we saw a flashback of Shadow talking to Maria. He told her that he often wonders why he was created.
What my purpose is for being here.
Maria believed that Shadow was created to give humans a brighter future, and he was. The government of the United Federation had solicited Gerald to unlock the secret to immortality. Project Shadow is an immortal life, and through further study, Gerald hoped to uncover the Fountain of Youth so that no human would ever have to die. Even more important to Gerald, though, was saving his granddaughter Maria from NIDS, a terminal disease. Poor Maria knew that it was too late for her, but she believed that, come what may, Shadow would be able to protect the Earth and the precious people who reside on it, both of which she was never able to be a part of, yet both of which she loved dearly. With this realization in mind, Shadow rushed to do what he now affirmed in his mind to be right. He succeeded in defeating the Bio-Lizard, a monster that blocked the hero's way to the Emeralds. But even after Knuckles stopped the energy of the Emeralds from powering the Ark, it still continued to fall. Sonic the Hedgehog and Shadow the Hedgehog teamed up and were able to chaos control the Ark back into its natural orbit. Everyone on Earth and Colony cheered and rejoiced. Sonic, though, was not so happy. He re-entered the colony carrying a gold ring. It was Shadow's ring. Using Chaos Control had drained him of all of his energy, and Sonic could only watch as Shadow plummeted to the earth, supposedly dying. This is where the controversy stems from. Shadow more than likely couldn't have survived that fall. Our atmosphere reaches approximately 196 miles, or 315 kilometers, into space. How did he return in Sonic Heroes? At the beginning of Sonic Heroes' Team Dark story, Rouge the Bat breaks into what is obviously one of Eggman's bases. Much like Eggman in Sonic Adventure 2, she was looking for something, but got what she would never have expected. She finds Shadow in a pod filled with green liquid. Then, what seems to be a guard robot begins attacking Rouge. Shadow reacts quickly and pushes her out of the way to do battle with it. But the Batgirl soon puts an end to their fighting. They apparently talk things over. We then find out that Shadow has amnesia and can't remember anything. The robot dubbed E123 Omega claims that Eggman locked him in this room with Shadow. As the story goes on, the trio hunt down Eggman. Rouge wants his treasure. Omega wants him dead. And Shadow, he wants to know who he is. Why did he wake up in that base? Why does he have no memory? The confusion for both player and character mounts when Eggman says,
"What memory? You have no past to remember."
If this was a fake Shadow, that statement would be very true. After defeating a decoy of Eggman, Shadow finds what surely struck horror in him. A robot, just like him, with exactly the same features, size, color, and powers. Is Shadow just another one of them? Earlier on, Rouge had an argument with Shadow. This is depicted in both Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic X. She found evidence of what was supposedly Project Shadow, and it was still sealed on the Ark.
Then exactly who or what is standing in front of me?
At the end of Team Dark's story, Rouge's claims are apparently confirmed. She stumbles upon a room with innumerable clones locked in pods identical to the one Shadow was found in. So is he just another one of them? Did the original Shadow, die? He wouldn't necessarily have to be alive to be cloned, right? Omega implied that the clones could not be made without the original, but only his corpse would be needed. The story continues in Shadow's spin-off, Shadow the Hedgehog. An alien race living on a comet that passes by Earth once every 50 years appears. They are called the Black Arms. It is revealed that Professor Gerald enlisted the assistance of Black Doom, the race's leader. Doom himself was immortal, so by using his blood, the Professor was able to create Shadow the Hedgehog, the immortal being. More questions are bound in this game for those who are unable or just too lazy to complete it. It features a choose your path style of gameplay. In each mission, you can either go with the villain, the hero, or just get the Chaos Emerald, essentially staying neutral. You start out in Westopolis. If you go with Black Doom and defeat so many G1 soldiers, you go further up to this mission, Digital Circuit. If you defeat the Black Aliens with Sonic, you go down to the lethal highway mission. If you just rush through and get the Chaos Emerald, you go neither up nor down. You just go forward to Griffith Canyon. There are hundreds of combinations of ways that you can go. After stage 6, there are these 10 bloops that seem to branch off even further. You might think of this as being Shadow's final decision. Even if you're on the fully neutral path, will the end lean more towards good or more towards bad? I'm going to briefly highlight a few notable endings of these 10. The 2 neutral ending cutscenes are just another thing those who believe Shadow is an android draw their supposed proof from. In the neutral story, Eggman remains firm to his accusation that Shadow is his creation, just as much as Omega is. These accusations start to get to Shadow, and he himself begins to believe the Doctor. He accepts it fully and laughs.
You're going straight to the place you created me from.
In harmony with that statement,
I am Shadow Android, the ultimate battle lifeform created by Eggman. You may have created me, Doctor, but I will now lead this empire and androids will rule. This is who I am.
What?
Goodbye, Doctor.
he kills Eggman. Of course, this didn't actually happen. All of these endings couldn't take place in conjunction with each other. This is just part of the game, and is mainly used, you might say, to illustrate the crossroads that Shadow stands at. So many people are screaming in his ears, telling him who he is, which is why the endings are so diversely different. You're basically choosing who Shadow listens to. I'd also like to highlight the Cosmic Fall semi-hero ending. This is when you
Find the computer room!
with Vector. This cutscene might just be the most depressing one in the game.
Finally, I've got all the Chaos Emeralds. I am Shadow the Hedgehog, a research experiment gone deadly wrong. I've caused so much destruction. I should never have been created. This is who I am.
We see here that he basically believes that he is the original. But he's sad once he realizes all the trouble that he's caused. The arc was raided because of the government's fear of him. His reasoning is not unlike that of Shadow in Sonic Battle. He believes that he must be done away with, or else a disaster will occur. It's in his programming, so to speak. Shadow is a weapon of mass destruction. Is any of that true? Is Shadow an android? And if he is the original, he's still just an emo good-for-nothing, right? After you completed all of these endings, you'll unlock the final way, the true story. You will unlock Shadow's actual past. Very long awaited indeed. Once you finish the final way stage, the Chaotix gang is showed apparently trying to recover some data from one of the Ark's computers. Charmy, quote-unquote, fixes the problem, resulting in a recording of Gerald Robotnik being played throughout the colony yet again, and this time in the GUN base. However, this is not the same recording from Sonic Adventure 2. This is apparently before the raid, and before Gerald lost his sanity. He talks of Black Doom's plan to destroy the Earth, and the way to stop that plan. He said that the same power they plan to use must be used against them. At the beginning of the final story, Black Doom recounts of how Gerald needed his help to complete Project Shadow. So they made a deal. Doom would assist Gerald if he would help him to get the 7 Chaos Emeralds. These were necessary for his plan to warp the Black Comet, the alien's home, down to the Earth, where it could not pass through the atmosphere on its own velocity. They then planned to harness its energy to destroy the planet. That's why Black Doom came to Shadow at the beginning of the game, telling him to find the emeralds. That was the plan all along, to use Shadow. Gerald, though, secretly built a weapon with enough power to destroy the Black Comet, the Eclipse Cannon. But who would be alive long enough to see the Black Comet return 50 years later? Shadow, of course. Just as Shadow was to help Black Doom collect the emeralds for his plan, Shadow could use the Eclipse Cannon to thwart it. So to use the power that the Black Arms plan to use against them means that Shadow is the key to Earth's salvation. He was that power. Filled with a new fire of determination, now knowing his purpose, Shadow stands tall and declares,
"No control over me, Black Doom. I now understand why I am here. I made a promise and I'm here to keep it. Today, I put my past behind me."
It's beautiful. He makes a resolution to leave behind his past, all his mistakes, his pain. He'll surely never forget Maria, and he shouldn't. But now he'll waver no more. He's chosen his path in life. He'll keep his promise to give everyone a chance to be happy by protecting them from this disaster. Shadow uses the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Shadow and defeats Devil Doom. As a final act, Shadow Chaos controls the accursed Black Comet into space. And, aiming the Eclipse Cannon to it, fires and destroys the Black Comet and the Black Arms race once and for all. If all of this is yet not evidence enough for you, notice what happens if you manage to survive the Devil Doom boss for 9 minutes.
Can you hear me? This might be the last chance I have to speak to you, so what I said about having created you, it was all a lie. Everyone thought you died during that horrible incident, but I rescued you with one of my robots. You lost your memory, that's all. You really are the ultimate life form my grandfather created.
There you have it. When most people look at Shadow, they think of him as emo, and some apparently still think that he's an android. Though I may be biased on the first statement, I tell you that he is neither. Shadow will always be a little negative, a little cocky maybe, a loner, headstrong, among other things. But I personally admire his determination. He'll let nothing stand in the way of his goals, and he generally winds up doing the right thing. He's put the past behind him. He won't dwell on whether he should or shouldn't have been created, or reflect on Maria's demise. Surely he'll glean what good he can from his memories of her, and most importantly, he'll never turn back.
true? Is it true? I'll take one step forward and two steps back. Got 100,000 pounds sitting on my back. Up, down, all around, don't know quite what to do to get through. But I'm on my way, on my way, on my way, on my way. Here I am.
Check out Timeline University's website for more info on upcoming classes.